Howdy y'all, welcome back to the channel. We have some big things planned today, and it's all carbon fiber work. So the two pieces we are working on in this video, we have the NRG steering wheel you saw us paint black the other week. We also have our center console we're going to be doing some work on and making this carbon fiber as well. So I already took the initiative with the steering wheel, and what we're doing on the steering wheel is we're just going to do an overlay of carbon fiber, real carbon fiber, on top of the steering wheel base. So we painted the bottom, the base of the steering wheel black. We have everything taped off all the way around. And what we did was we sprayed some Super 99 adhesive on both sides, and what we did was we attached it. So it is actually on there pretty good and attached. And then what we're going to do when we get both of these ready, we're going to mix up our 2-part epoxy resin and coat all of this all at the same time so that we make one batch and we do it all together. But as you can see, we have the steering wheel with their first layer of carbon fiber on here, nicely laid on there. As you can see, what will happen is we'll cover this in resin, and then we will reshape the steering wheel and clean up all the edges and make sure everything looks good. Then we'll do multiple coats, sand it, wet sand it, polish it, all that kind of stuff, and then finally clear coat it so it all looks good in the center. This is just an overlay. We're not doing anything crazy with that. This piece here, which you guys know as the center console, I grabbed one of these from the junkyard a couple years ago with the plan to do this in carbon fiber. There's a couple people that make this in carbon fiber on the internet. Mike Stahl makes one center console like this, but this also is going to be an overlay, but we're going to do a little bit different idea with it. It's not going to be OEM. So as you can see, I'm pulling the leather off this, or it's leather from the factory. So we got to pull the leather off because we need the plastic base for our carbon fiber and our initial everything. So all we have to do is we got to get the heat gun. Some of these corners are on there really good, so what we need to do is just heat them up really good till they loosen the glue underneath, and once they do, then they kind of get pliable, and look at that, you can just pull all this stuff off. So what we're going to do eventually, once we get all this leather off, the leather goes bye-bye because we can't cover over carbon fiber with leather. So the leather goes away. Now we're left with the plastic base. What I did off camera was we had some polycarbonate, just some polycarbonate from Lowe's, and what I did was I bent it up and heated it up with the heat gun to the shape of our opening. So as you can see, we have the shape of our opening. What this is going to do, we're going to glue this in here, and then what this is going to do is it's going to give us when we cover this in carbon fiber, it's going to give us a flat area. And if you know, in my center console we have that switch panel that's mounted in there now, and I had to make a carbon fiber delete panel and all that stuff. This now will be a complete carbon fiber piece, one piece. All we have to do is come back and trim the hole and mount our switch panel to this, and then we'll be done. It'll be one fluid, nice looking center console with all our switches and everything. So now that we got this off, what we're going to do before we sand, we are going to bust out our Gorilla Glue, and we are going to glue all of this in place so that once this gets glued and we smooth this all out, we're going to sand the whole thing, sand it smooth, and then we're going to cover in carbon fiber. I'm going to show you how I did the steering wheel, how I did this. We'll cover this, and then when we get both of those ready, we'll resin all of it. I'll us glue our polycarbonate to the center console. What we're going to do now, we are going to take our Bondo and a spreader, and we are going to smooth out this little gap so that you don't see that when we actually lay the carbon fiber. Because if you lay the carbon fiber right now and you lay it on here, you'll see that outline, and we don't want to see that. We want this to be completely clean. So we're going to take our Bondo, fill it in, let it dry, sand it down, and make sure this is all smooth, because we want this to look like one big piece of carbon when we're done. So let's mix this up and get it spread. So, as you saw, we laid our Bondo. We didn't overwork it too much. Tried to lay it as smooth as we possibly could. So this will be our first layer. We will sand this. Once it dries, we're going to leave it in here. Leave it by a heater. Let it go out, pop off, harden up. And our next step is to, once this all dries, we'll come back and we'll sand it all and see how it filled in the gaps. If we need to put a little bit more second coat, we will. Once that dries, then we can stick our carbon fiber to it. So let's let this dry and we'll come back. We nicely body filled, as you can see, on our Lexan, and what we did was we sanded it smooth and we just hit it with a black primer coat just to see how all this came out. As you can see, there's a little bit color variation. You can see where the actual Bondo was compared to the actual console surround, but everything looks super good, super smooth enough for our carbon fiber to cover. So what we're using, as we used on the steering wheel, we're using a 2x2 3K carbon fiber here. We have it taped because we cut all the sides. What we did was we cut it a little bit bigger than the actual piece itself, so that we have room to wrap around, make sure we get all our corners and all that stuff. And when we get done, we'll trim it, and we'll trim it close enough, and then we'll resin. And once we resin and it comes down, we'll trim it again to make sure it's the final fit to the piece. But what we're going to do, as I did, I don't know if you guys, as we did on the steering wheel, as you can see, what we did was we used a 3M90 extra hold spray adhesive. So what we're going to do, you have two ways of doing this. You can either mix up a vat of resin, coat the whole thing in resin, and then let the resin tack up, lay the carbon fiber down, and then before that resin dries, put another layer of resin on top of that. What we're going to do, since it's so cold outside and we're inside right now, what we're going to do is use the spray adhesive method, which is spray the whole thing down with spray adhesive, spray the back of the carbon fiber and spray adhesive, and then we'll push it all down. And what it's going to do is it's going to hold its shape enough that we can trim out the shifter hole, trim out some of the larger holes, and then we will, once that dries, then we can get our resin, and then we'll lay resin on top of that. That resin will soak into the piece plus the carbon fiber and make a solid bond. So let's go get our 3M 90, and we're going to spray both of these, and we'll get them all tacked up. Now that the glue has dried, what I'm doing is I'm taking a razor blade on the large open area, and I am cutting directly on the edge of the shifter and pulling it off. So now that we have the center hole there, when we go to resin, we can resin right up to that point, and then we can just clean off. All our OEM stuff in a shift boot will fit right into that hole, and it'll be perfect. So our next step is to mix up 2 equal parts of part A, part B of this resin. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix it up in this bucket. We have a foam brush, and we're going to lightly coat both this and the steering wheel in a light coat of resin for our first layer. Once that's done, we're going to let that cure, and then we're going to lightly sand it, add a second coat, so on and so forth until we have about 4, possibly 5 coats depending on the gloss. But that is those are the steps. So let's get to it. Just going to hit it with the heat gun real quick, knock out some of the bubbles, whatever bubbles there are in any of this, and then let it cure. Then we'll come back to it. So we have our first coats down. I test sanded the steering wheel, and it's laying out pretty nicely. So a little bit more sanding on this to smooth it out, and then 2 more coats of resin on top of that, and we should be good on that. Now our next one is we trimmed up the dash piece. Now what we have to do is we need to sand this down just like we did the steering wheel. Make sure it is all flat all the way around, and then we will get ready for the next coat. Once we sand this down and get all this, like this little run right here, we need to sand that down, sand down the front edges and stuff like that. But let's get this sanded and looking good. So guys, we have the piece sanded pretty good. Still have some areas that are kind of got some low spots, but we will fill that in with the next round. As you can see, the top still has some very low spots. That's because when we laid our resin the first time, we laid it like this. Our next time we'll lay it like this, and we'll let that resin soak in here, and then we'll drape it over the top over here and work our way down. But this piece is looking good. We're going to final sand this and the steering wheel. We'll set them up over there, and we'll mix up some resin, and we will give this a second coat. Now that we got everything wiped down and it's clean, we are ready to coat our, well, this is actually our third coat, but this is going to be basically our main coat after our sanding so that we can get super smooth. As you can see, everything looks really good. This is only light area, that's why we flipped it this way. We're going to coat this so that this becomes like this. Let's get So guys, our second coat is on and it's drying, but we are almost there. I picked up some 2K clear when I was at the paint store yesterday to finish this off. So what we have left to do on this is gonna set up and cure, finish up. As soon as it does, we will be able to sand it smooth and then hit it with some 2K clear and it will be done. The same with the steering wheel. The steering wheel is the same way. While we were at it, I did cover a couple of the little side pieces over here. Those, I need to get some more resin to finish those and everything. But these are done, and that's the end of this video, guys. The only other step left is to sand and then clear coat, but that is basically it for carbon fiber wrapping and covering of that. Chris has dropped off his, and we are going to do his as well, but his is not going to be the delete panel, it's going to be OEM style. So that is our carbon fiber 101 video, guys. If you have any questions or comments or any little details, let me know and I will try to answer as best I can. I will see you guys next video. We're doing more carbon fiber stuff.